Hello, everybody, and happy holidays from Nerd to the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I'm your host and Jedi Master, Dr. Gonzo. With me, as always, in this epic quest of awesomeness is our resident crackshot pilot, the Cat. Cat, how are you doing this week?
I just thought of that joke that's currently going around, that video of a guy and he's got a lightsaber and he's at like Disneyland or Disney World or whatever, and the stormtroopers walk by and the one goes, "If you're the last, or if there's a last Jedi, it's not you," or something like that. I just remembered what a sick burn that was.
Okay. Alrighty. And we also have with us our resident Huttese crime lord, Mike the Birdman Dodd. Mike, how you doing?
That's right, I rule from the shadows of Nalhutta, so believe me, I am excited for this.
So, in case I haven't made it painfully obvious, this is our Star Wars episode. So tonight we're going to be discussing Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, the capstone to the Skywalker saga, and the last Star Wars film planned so far that I'm aware of, unless there's been something announced that I'm not aware of.
They are doing Knights of the Old Republic. They just don't know when it's coming out. I think they've said maybe 2022, I think, but I'm not sure.
Ooh, that might be interesting. So yes, so that's good. We've both seen the movie, some of us multiple times, and we've got opinions, and we'll be discussing those. But of course, there is procedure files, so we're going to begin real quick with a couple of fast Ask a Geek questions here. And let's see here. First question here. This one comes from Mark, and it is to all of us, and it's if you were to have a lightsaber, what color would it be? So let's start with you, Kat. If you were to have a lightsaber, what color and/or style would you have?
I don't really know what the colors are supposed to mean, if there's some deeper lore in the books about the crystals or whatever, but teal would be cool.
Okay, and would you do a single blade or a double?
A single, because I'm already more likely to like laser my own hand off. Like, you don't need George Lucas to write it in there, like, in the script. Like, I would just do it if I had a double blade.
Okay. Mike, what about you? Color and style?
Style would be, think of Darth Maul's double-bladed, but not actually double-bladed, just a longer hilt style. Color would be pink. Just because I think that's a really vibrant color. I'm a big fan of how that's looked in some of the games. However, though, for following established universe colors, probably green would be my pick. But if I could go fan servicey, definitely pink.
Okay. Well, I'm an old school fan, so I'd go a regular single blade with a yellow blade. If I were to go for something of my own. So yeah, so single blade style, yellow blade. Now have you, Mike? I know that you've seen this because you sold me one of them. But Kat, have you ever seen Saberforge sabers?
Yeah, because I've been to a comic book convention. Yeah.
Wow, just the way you said
I mean,
that.
they're at all of them. They're everywhere. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm saving up to get a replica of Luke Skywalker's saber from Return of the Jedi, but it costs like fucking $600.
They had one at Comic-Con many years ago, and I don't know that I've seen it since, but they had one that was the Sword of Omens from Thundercats as a lightsaber, and I thought that was the coolest thing. I think we've mentioned that before on this show, but like that to me is still like the coolest mashup.
That's pretty bitchin', yeah.
And then someone sent me a picture of one that they'd had the basic hilt made by Saberforge, but then they'd machined on the extra bits. But it was a lightsaber version of the Master Sword from The Legend of Zelda, and I'm just like, oh man, the Triforce is with you. Oh yeah. But yeah, that saber that I'm gonna buy is gonna cost like $600 because I'm fucking insane. I can't just get the bone stock one. I have to get all the bells and whistles.
Well, of course.
And this is why you don't give me money. All right. And let's see. Second question here. And this one comes from Riley. And they ask what you and I think of Jedi Fallen Order. So, Mike, why don't you go real quick on this one?
I don't have a lot of opinions on it yet because I got this game for my birthday all the way back in October. Obviously, it came out in November. I haven't played it yet, though. After this show, I am actually going to sit down and play it. However, I've already spoiled 90% of it for myself anyway. I like what it's done. I like the fact that it took the Dark Souls-like combat and brought it to Star Wars without it being brutally difficult, more like Sekiro's Shadows Die Twice. I think it's a cool addition to canon. I think the second sister storyline would have been a lot more interesting to follow as a protagonist. But Respawn did an amazingly good job and showed EA, hey, single-player Star Wars games sell, so maybe we should make more of those.
That is encouraging, yes. I have played it, and I finally wound up putting it down and just watching a playthrough online because, like Mike mentioned, it takes a lot of the it takes a lot of its cues from Dark Souls, but it doesn't really fully commit to it. And there are some things that it omits that I feel like that formula really needs. So it's hard for me to get into the gameplay of it. Story-wise and presentation, I mean, it's a gorgeous game, and the story is really intriguing. And after I finished watching my playthrough, I was like, okay, yeah, this is. I would like more of this, even though it's not really my cup of tea gameplay style. And yeah, it is encouraging that EA is actually publishing single-player games and having them stand on the strength of their single player instead of filling it with fucking loot boxes. So yeah. So okay, and yeah, that's all the Ask the Geek questions that we're going to do this week because we have a lot to discuss with our discussion topic, and that is Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. And yeah, this is what everything's been building up to over the past 7 years. 2013 was when Force Awakens came out.
2014.
So over the last little over half decade, this is what everything's been building up to. So let's determine if this was worth it, or if the Force is strong with this one, or if it I don't really know where to go with it. Let's just jump right into it. So Kat, let's start with you. What are your general thoughts on Rise of Skywalker?
Thank God we're talking about it because I'm real tired of talking about it and reading about it, and I know we're all pretty tired of it. I really feel like this movie was never going to make everyone happy, and the filmmakers have said you shouldn't try to make everyone happy because you just won't succeed. And I am one of the people who came out on the side of enjoying the film. I thought a lot of the character stuff got rounded out. It did, however, feel really disjointed from The Last Jedi. Like, it felt like a good rounding off for The Force Awakens, but less for The Last Jedi. It did, like, conclude a lot of threads, and it made things in The Last Jedi make more sense, but it makes it stand out even more. It just makes it feel more disjointed. I liked The Last Jedi. So I'm coming out on top of, I enjoyed all three films for the reason that I am easy to please when it comes to Star Wars. I don't have the lore knowledge. I never read any of the novels. So all I have to go from are like one book, the one book that I've read, which was the Force Awakens novelization. Oh, there was a prequel that I read, and the movies, and that's all I have to go from. And I really feel like it did a nice job of capping out a lot of stuff, homaging a lot of the original films, and setting up a whole new world if they wanted to do more.
Okay. Birdman, what about you? What are your general thoughts on the film?
Okay. Allow me to preface this. I have 30 plus years of EU knowledge. And yes, I realize that's been all hand-waved away by Disney. My problem is J.J. Abrams. The Force Awakens, I thought, was promising. It had some problems for the most part because it was A New Hope Redux, but I'm okay with that for the most part. The Last Jedi, I didn't really care for. I didn't hate it, didn't love it. This movie just felt like an apology after The Last Jedi. Like, one of the things that I read about this today, one of the characters I really liked in The Last Jedi was Rose. You realize her sister had more screen time in The Last Jedi than Rose did in the entirety of Rise of Skywalker, at just a little over 1 minute and 30 seconds. Just saying. It just felt like so many characters got done dirty and just things just miraculously happened. Like, one of the big things that Rise of Skywalker did was they brought back Emperor Palpatine, which is cool. I enjoy the Emperor. But you know what did it better? Dark Empire by Dark Horse in the 90s. Here it's just, he's back. How? I don't know, because plot reasons. And it pisses me off because it feels so disjointed. If you asked, and I can ask you guys this, if I ask you to elevator pitch me or tell me the stories of the prequels and the OT, you can probably do that in under 30 seconds to a minute. Try and tell me the story of the new trilogy in that same context. Not as easy, not as hard. The new trilogy felt very disjointed. With Rise of Skywalker, there were some genuinely cool moments. I'm glad Chewie got his due, he got his medal. Lando came back. That was neat. Poe and Finn. My God, why aren't these people a couple? I'm just saying, because that would be awesome. And just, there were parts of this that I liked, parts of it that I absolutely fucking loathed. I didn't like it. I didn't hate it. But I just felt 42 years, and this is the conclusion. I'm not satisfied. I'm thinking the true succession, honestly, in my opinion, was when Timothy Zahn did his novels back in the 1990s, Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and The Last Command. Those were my 7, 8, 9, in my opinion. So think of that what you will, and let's open the floor.
Well, hang on. I still like to get my
of course
my opinion here. Yeah, so I did not like this movie. My biggest issue with it, and we'll get into it as we discuss the story, is I didn't feel like there was very much in it that was new. A lot of the story beats, stuff that had been done before, and felt like the long and short is I felt like this movie was kind of built on fan service, without having a strong core of its own. And what was there that was new, I felt like there was a lot of very baffling story decisions that were made. But we'll get into those as we start discussing the story of this film. But I did not enjoy this movie. It took a hard left for me right at the start with that opening scrawl. And to put this in context, I am a huge Star Wars nut. I mean, Star Wars pretty much was my childhood outside of video games. So, like, you know, this film really disappointed me, and it's really disappointing because I genuinely liked The Force Awakens, and I was excited to see what they were going to do with it. I had my problems with The Last Jedi, mostly centered around the fact they used that stupid sickly child plot structure, which I discussed in detail in that review. But I was still, it's still at least trying to do something different. This movie, I feel like there's nothing in here that I hadn't seen before. But like I said, we'll get into that as we start breaking the movie down into its component parts. Starting with the story. So, Kat, why don't you give us a quick recap of the story of this film?
Holy crap! It is a convoluted story. It's actually not convoluted. It's just a lot. It's a lot of, like, we have to go to this planet to do this thing and go to this other planet to do this other thing, and that is a lot like The Last Jedi. So in this particular film, okay, let's see if I can remember all of this. So it kind of opens with Kylo Ren, who is going around and just, like, murdering the fuck out of everybody because a message has been transmitted, and it's Palpatine, and he's back, and Kylo Ren doesn't want anybody to threaten his power. So he's just going around just murdering, like, all the people in the world to try and find more information about Palpatine. And then he goes and he finds Palpatine, and Palpatine's like, dude, I'll give you, like, a whole army. I'll give you an empire if you just kill that bitch. And so Kylo Ren's like, I'm on it. I've got it. Don't worry. Just, just give me a couple of days, me and my knights, who we haven't seen except like once in a flashback in The Force Awakens. We got this. And so then he's going to go off and find that bitch, Rey, and going to go hunt her down for Palpatine, quote unquote. And then on the other side, you've got the Resistance, and they're running around, and they found out that there's a mole in the First Order, and they're like, oh, that's really important. Spoiler alert, it really wasn't. But so they're like, oh, we've got a mole. This is really great information, but we're still all going to die all the time. And Rey's off training to do Jedi shit because we need a Jedi, and there's really nobody else who is a Jedi. And so, like, there's a little bit of tension because she would be better served, you know, being out there flying the Falcon and being all a boss. Instead, she's like there lifting rocks, trying to commune with the dead. And she's not. So there's a bit of tension there. And then they find out that, okay, yeah, Palpatine's back and he's in this place. He's in a place, the MacGuffin land. Like, it's like this impossible to find planet called Exegol. Yep. It was one of those words that I feel like everybody pronounced it just a little bit differently. So I couldn't quite get a handle on what it was called, but Exegol. And so the only way to get to Exegol is to use a Sith Wayfinder, of which there were only 2 ever made, because MacGuffins are like that. And so she's got to find one of those. Well, Luke had a lead on where one was. So they all got to go, the gang's all back together, and they're going to go find this other planet where Luke had figured out there was a Wayfinder. And this all connects back to Rey's backstory, where like they're finding this Wayfinder, but she kind of recognizes the ship that it was found on and all this other stuff. And while they're trying to find this Wayfinder, they find a Sith dagger, and 3PO can translate it, but he's not allowed to say the words because it's a banned language. It's like the Council of Elrond, and like Gandalf starts speaking the black speech, and that's hella bad. So that's all terrible. So they can't like figure out what this dagger says. And then they need to get off the planet real quick because the bad guys figured out that they're there, and this is the most rambly I can. There's so much that happens in this film. No joke.
Yeah, we're not even in her recap. We're not even 45 minutes into the film yet.
No, this is like a solid 30
first
minutes
20.
in.
Yeah.
So the First Order figures out that they're on this planet, and she's like, "Oh, I gotta go fight Kylo Ren because he's that bitch for her." Like they just gotta be like fighting in every moment of the film. So she's going to go fight, and then Chewie gets captured, and she's like, no, I'm going to like bring that plane back down. And he's like, no, we're going to let it go. And then she fucking Palpatines the goddamn the freighter that was taking off, the dinghy. and it blows up, and she's like, oh no, I'm going to shriek as loud as I possibly can. And like kills Chewie. Holy shit. And they're like, oh, we got to escape. And then they are like, we still have to get this dagger translated, and it's in 3PO's memory bank, so we got to go to this other planet where Poe knows a guy who's going to be able to like open up 3PO's head and pull out the information. And then while they're on this other planet, they run into like what is clearly Poe's ex-girlfriend, who like used to like run Spice, which definitely is like drugs ?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a Critical Role fan, this is entirely something else, and very, very funny under a complete different circumstances. So anyway, they managed to sadly, tragically, reset 3PO's memory banks, and that allows him to translate the stuff. And then they're like, okay, we know what we got to do now. But then the First Order attacks this planet because they're just like tragedy magnets who drag attacks with them. And then so Rey has another fight with Kylo Ren because that's like 90% of the film. And they figure out that, oh, Chewie's alive and he's on that ship. Holy shit, that's great. So they got to go rescue Chewie from from Kylo Ren's ship, and they all get on board, and they're fighting, and they get Chewie, get his stuff, get the dagger back, and Hux is the mole, which I would have liked them to have done a lot more with. And they all get off again, and then what happens after that?
From that point on, they've got the dagger. They go to Endor, to the ruins of the second Death Star. And
Yes!
they Rey discovers that that the Emperor had a vault on the Death Star, so she basically infiltrates the ruins, finds the second Wayfinder, but then because bad things always come in threes, Kylo Ren tracks her there as well, destroys the Wayfinder, and pulls the emo high school bullshit. The only way that you're getting to the Emperor is with me, and so they have a lightsaber battle on the ruins of the Death Star, and Rey manages to escape, and I don't recall exactly how she manages to get to Exegol on her own.
Okay, but
she basically steals Kylo Ren's
track it back, because Kylo Ren gets distracted in the middle of this fight because Leia
just ups and pieces out.
Yeah, like she's like, I've got to distract my son from killing this girl, and so Leia dies, and they're like, oh shit, Leia just died, and so like both of them are like, oh, my mom just died. Yeah. Both of them are thinking that.
And then Rey steals Kylo Ren's ship, and then leaves a trail of breadcrumbs to Exegol, where she discovers that.
She does not go to Exegol. She goes to Luke's Hermit Island.
Oh yeah, that's right.
She goes to the Hermit Island and is like, I'm going to peace out like Luke did because I'm really afraid that I'm going to become like a Sith or something. And then Luke has to have a Force Ghost pep talk with her and is like, bitch, get over there and do this thing. Because in all of this, Rey has found out that she is in fact a Palpatine.
She's Palpatine's granddaughter.
Yes, she is Emperor Palpatine's granddaughter. Her father was Palpatine's son. And then all I could think the whole time was who would fuck Palpatine, but I guess that's neither here nor there. And so Rey's like, I gotta peace out before I turn into a Sith. And then Luke is like, go kill him. We don't care that you're a Palpatine. The Force lives in you now. This is how it has to be. And she's like, oh, you right. And then like she gets Luke like force ups his X-Wing, and she's going to go fly off, and she sends out a transmission to the Resistance saying, here's how we're going to get to Exegol, just follow me. And then everybody goes to Exegol.
Literally everyone.
Everybody in the goddamn universe goes to Exegol.
But only after Lando and Chewie go round up some allies because they wouldn't follow Leia's call for help. They peace out for 30 minutes and they come back with a fucking fleet.
Yes. So, but also while they were on the Endor by the ocean and everything, they found a bunch of ex-stormtroopers like Finn who were all defectors, and then they bring them along too.
Yeah. And then they go to Exegol. They have this big, not really a space battle, but a sky battle. With everybody in the goddamn universe versus this hidden Sith fleet of Star Destroyers that's been basically tucked away, and every single one of those Star Destroyers has a planet-destroying weapon, which they show on one of the planets that Rey was on earlier, because again, death follows them everywhere. And on the planet's surface, Rey and Kylo Ren have a confrontation with Palpatine, and Palpatine's basic plan is to do a spirit hop where he wants to have Rey kill him so that he can basically take over her body, which, as Mike mentioned, is a plot line taken from the Dark Empire comic, which I will say this, because I absolutely hated Dark Empire. I will say this, they actually handled it a little less squicky than they did in the Dark Empire comic, because on the comic, Palpatine's plan was to spirit hop into Leia's unborn child that Rey was carrying in her womb. And I'm like,
oh, that's some Dune shit.
Yeah, that's gross. So yeah, and so they do, but he also discovers that he can basically drain the life force out of Rey.
Because during this whole time, Rey has figured out how to transfer some of her life force into like a healing thing.
Yeah.
Like she can heal stuff with her hands because of the force.
Yeah, and Palpatine basically forces that, and it's like, oh no, screw that, I don't need you, I'll just drain your life force. But then there's a whole, because all the Sith are in him, all the Jedi are in you, so she basically does this, reflects his force lightning back at him and disintegrates him, and then the fleet gets destroyed, the First Order is destroyed, and then the whole thing ends with Rey going to Luke's house on Tatooine to bury his lightsaber, and she decided she's going to call herself a Skywalker now. And that's the basic story beats.
That was a lot. That's because that film was a lot.
Yeah, the pacing of this film, as if you haven't figured it out from our recap, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in this film, and the pacing is very off. The first hour and a half of this movie, I don't know, was it just me, or did it feel like they were just moving from one set piece to another without taking any room to breathe?
You couldn't breathe in this movie.
No one can criticize the movie of being boring or only visiting like a frozen or a desert planet because they were like, we've heard your criticisms. You thought The Last Jedi was too slow and we've only revisited the same kinds of planets. So we're going to throw you at like 8 different planets and you're never going to... There is no bathroom break in this film. It is literally just breakneck speed the whole time to get as much done as possible.
Yeah. So I guess, Kat, what are your general thoughts on the story and the beats that it hits in this film?
I thought it was fine. Obviously, it had the pacing issue where it gave itself too much to do, and they really could have knocked one planet off and simplified everything. And I don't know why they tried to shove quite so much into it, because it felt, I don't want to say padding, but it just felt like it was a little too convoluted. Not in that every movie has their MacGuffin where they have to go to a place, get the thing that they need, and then go save the day. Most films have some sort of bullshit MacGuffin like that. So I don't mind the MacGuffin of the Sith Wayfinder. I just thought it was too complicated to get to Exegol. It could have been so much simpler. And it should have been. There's one whole planet that they could have just skipped, and it would have been fine, and you wouldn't have really lost anything. They could have done everything they wanted to do on 1 or 2 planets instead of 4.
Yeah.
But otherwise, the story itself is fine. To me, it's fine. It's a bit much, but they didn't want to torture us and make it a 4-hour-long film. So...
Okay. Well, for me, I have 3 major complaints with the story. And they all kind of bleed into each other. The first major complaint that I have is the revelation of Rey being, well, first off, Palpatine being back to begin with had me rolling my eyes. Not just because there's 2 big reasons why I don't like Palpatine coming back. The first reason is it's very obvious, to me at least, that that's a patch job for the fact that Snoke got killed off in The Last Jedi. And they even sort of lampshade that. There's Palpatine has this whole thing where it's Rey, where Kylo Ren's oh, I killed Snoke, and Palpatine's I was Snoke, I made him. I was every voice in your head. So they so now it's pretty much made all the mystique and mystery that was surrounding Snoke in the first 2 films meaningless. And leading into that, my second major complaint is, the whole arc of the first 6 movies was about essentially, bringing balance to the Force and destroying the Sith. And that's what happened at the end of Return of the Jedi. Yeah, the Luke was there in Return of the Jedi to redeem his father and turn him back to the light side, but literally everyone else in the story, their goal was to kill Palpatine, either by destroying the Death Star or, killing him directly. Their whole shtick was trying to kill Palpatine. So for Palpatine to just come back with and either just come back or having never been dead, to me, it feels like everything that happened in the first 6 movies is now completely meaningless. It feels like it was for nothing. The good guys didn't win. You know, to make a comparison, it felt like if they made a ninth Harry Potter book, and it turned out Voldemort had come back and he had 7 more Horcruxes and the Death Eaters had taken over the Ministry of Magic again. What was the point of everything that came before if it's all just been reset back to square one? And the idea of Palpatine having children, that just gets more uncomfortable the more I think about it. Like,
and hilarious.
No, not hilarious. Like I'm genuinely disturbed by the implications of that, because he is not a character who feels any love for anybody but himself. So the only way for him to have procreated, and I'm not going to go any further down that road, because that's not a road I want to go about. That's not something I want to think about.
Genuinely, I'd like to think he made a test tube child.
That's the only that's the only. I hope that's the explanation that they finally reveal it, because
the
I don't
other
want to think
version is really even more uncomfortable.
Yeah, it really is. And then we lead into my major complaint of this movie, which is there's almost nothing new here. Almost all the story beats in this film are things that we've seen before. You know, the hunt for the Sith Wayfinder. Okay, that's the search for Luke's map in The Force Awakens. Rey being Palpatine's granddaughter. Okay, that's just Luke, I am your father all over again. And even that kind of is rehashed twice over with the whole Kylo Ren trying to turn Rey to the dark side. It's a rehash of the Luke and Vader relationship, except with the added thing where it's hinted that they're like supposed to be soulmates. And actually, just before Kylo Ren dies and he redeems himself, Rey fucking kisses him, and I'm just like, no. So you're telling me that this guy who's been a fucking emo stalker jackass for 3 movies
and a war criminal,
criminal managed to win this girl's heart? No, that shit didn't work in high school. It's not going to work here. And I just thought, yeah, it was very, I couldn't buy that. And I actually vocally groaned when that happened in the movie in the theater. But it's like, okay, the vision that Rey has of her dark side self on the Death Star ruins. Okay, now we're back at the cave on Dagobah. Okay, Luke showing up to give a pep talk to Rey on the island. Okay, well, that's Yoda giving a pep talk to Luke on the island in The Last Jedi. There's so little of this movie that hasn't been done before, and it feels like this movie story doesn't have a strong core of its own. And then there are other story decisions that are made that are just utterly baffling to me. Why is Hux the mole? His motivation is just the most petty ass chicken shit I've ever heard. I don't need you to win. I just need Kylo Ren to lose. But
have you paid attention to Hux for the last 2 films? That is literally his character. He is a little dirtbag, and I love him.
I thought that line was pretty funny, but yeah.
But it's petty chicken shit. And then the things that they do that's are
just consistent writing.
So, and then okay, so you're going to tell me that that General Leia, hero of the galaxy, can't scare up any allies to help in the fight against the First Order, but Lando, who the galaxy hasn't heard from in years, can get every single fleet in the galaxy to come to Exegol? I'm not buying that.
Well,
although
in
in fairness,
if maybe Carrie Fisher had gotten to finish her scenes, there might have been something for that.
Yeah,
but she didn't get to finish filming, so we'll never really know what that was going to be.
Yeah, I'm gonna give a pass on that one on the grounds of Carrie's death. Doesn't mean I have to like it though. And then let's see where it was like. And then the things that they do that are new, there are these moments that are supposed to have emotional weight to them, but then they just get undone later, like Chewie's death. That was the point where I thought that the movie was actually going to start turning around for me. I was like, oh shit, they kill off this beloved character. Maybe this is where they're gonna finally stop messing around and start getting serious. Oh no, it just turned out he was on another transport. Well, okay, that was pointless. Okay, well now they're gonna have to erase C-3PO's memory to get this data. Okay, all right, well that's an emotionally impacting scene. Here's a character that I love who's gonna go away. Then not only do they turn him into basically, the stupid comic relief for the rest of the movie, but then that memory wipe is undone later with a literal Gilligan cut, which there's so many things in this movie that either have been done before and done better, or I felt like didn't need to be in this movie because they were undone. And then like a great example, go back to what Mike said, the whole thing with Rose. I mean, I was, as much as I didn't really like how her character was executed in the second film, I wanted to see more of her and where she was going to go with that. And then she shows up for all of like 90 seconds in this film. And
I'm going to go study the specs of old Star Destroyers. Bye. That was all she said.
Yeah. So it's like, and the thing is like, and I hate to bring up The Last Jedi because the discourse around that has just been awful. And I know that I'm probably going to get some people yelling at me for this, but so it feels like the reason why this movie was so disjointed and badly paced and so many baffling story decisions were in this film was because they were trying to spend a lot of time undoing what was done in The Last Jedi. It feels like this was an overcorrection from the previous film.
I don't agree with that.
But it's just like
totally.
It's and you know what? But you know what? I'll give credit to J.J. Abrams. He's been a class act as far as receiving criticism. Like Kat said, I mean, he's come out and said, like, look, I knew I wasn't going to make everybody happy. So, but those are my main criticisms. Birdman, what about you?
You hit almost every point that I was going to say. I mean, the story, it's not the whole problem I feel with the sequel trilogy is it started out promising, and for this to be the capstone of the Skywalker saga, this is the best you could do. Like, my problem is bringing back Palpatine. You said it right, Gonzo. You hand waved out 6 movies beforehand, and now he's just suddenly back because reasons. Snoke was a little weird, but had the potential to be an interesting bad guy, and then you just offed him in The Last Jedi. It's just, there's so many little problems where I think The Rise of Skywalker should have been something really impressive, monumental. It should have really said something for 42 years of cinema and storytelling. And this just felt like a wet fart. Certain parts of this movie land, like there are some really cool moments in this, but overall it's just like, what the fuck, man? It's like someone handed JJ and whoever his scriptwriters were, okay, here's the expanded universe from 1991 to current, read everything through once without comprehending what they were reading, scribbled down those notes in crayon the second they finished reading it, handed it to him. JJ said, okay, cool, I like this, and this, handed it to a scriptwriter and said, okay, make it work. And this is how we got Rise of Skywalker. And like you said, they're overcorrecting for some things that happened in The Last Jedi, which, divisive to say the least. It's not my favorite, it's not my least favorite, but there's just so many things here that just don't land. And I know I'm supposed to feel for these characters, and I thought, like when you said when they killed Chewie, all right, the film's got some balls. All right, cool. It's hand waved away. Oh shit. Oh man, they're gonna kill 3, and who gives a shit? He's back. It's so lame for a movie that wanted to for a trilogy that wanted to take chances by killing Han Solo, and you just hand wave 2 major deaths in one movie. Come on, man. Like, there should be something more here. And the fact that this grand bad guy comes back, who's been this overarching villain for 9 movies now, and he gets undone again by Force lightning, just, it baffles me. And the fact that, I'm sorry, when he went into the Death Star reactor shaft, he was fucking atomized. Ian McDiarmid recently did an interview where he said to George Lucas, I thought I was dead. And George's like, yeah, you totally were. Weird, isn't it? So I don't know, man. This isn't the ending that I wanted. I left so disappointed and pissed off. And it's not because I hate J.J. Abrams. He's an all right filmmaker, I guess. But this isn't my 7, 8, 9. This is not my conclusion, the Skywalker saga. I mean, I like Rey. I even like Kylo Ren, despite how much of a whiny, pissy baby he is, because that lightsaber's fucking badass. And I like Rey's lightsaber, to say something.
That we see cool. All of like 3 seconds.
It's made out of her staff, which I think is really cool. And the fact she has a yellow kyber crystal is a whole new set of lore questions, but I digress. But, man, I'm done.
And the whole last act, I mean, it felt to me like bad fanfic. It really did. Okay, all the Star Destroyers have a planet-killing weapon. Okay, Palpatine is not only back, but he can also force lightning everybody on the planet at once. It just
It's somebody's bad RPG campaign. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah,
I've seen this before.
We've seen most of this movie before.
And it sucks.
And now then someone told me something after I saw this movie the first time that really pissed me off, is that there apparently is an explanation for how Palpatine came back, but it's only in expanded universe materials. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again: expanded universe material is supposed to expand the source material. It's not supposed to inform it. I should not have to go see. I think I said it when in our review of Solo. Actually, I shouldn't have to read, a comic book or an outside comic book or novel to understand what's going on in your film, which is the spine of your story. I absolutely hate the fact that I apparently have to do that to find out how the hell Palpatine came back. It's like, the first 6 films, even with the prequels, okay, yeah, they're for all their issues, you could watch those movies and understand everything that's going on. You didn't need to read any expanded universe material to understand, why, for example, Count Dooku is working with the Separatists in Episode 2, or, where General Grievous came from for Episode 3. None of that was important. You didn't need to, and even with the original trilogy, you didn't need to see Anakin's fall from grace and how he became Darth Vader to understand his character arc in the original trilogy. But the fact that now so much of what goes on in this film, I can only understand if I've read the expanded universe materials, it really irritates me. I genuinely want to know more about, who this character is that Poe apparently had a history with when he was a spice runner, but we don't see any of that in the film. There's apparently the one of the defecting stormtroopers, the lead one, the black lady, is apparently supposed to be Lando's daughter, who was kidnapped by the First Order. You wouldn't know that in the film. It's only in the expanded universe materials.
That from the film.
I didn't infer that at all. When you know what I inferred?
I remember hearing this too.
You know what I inferred from the one scene they had together in the film? I thought he was flirting with her. I thought he was hitting on her. I thought he was going to try and convince her to go on a galaxy hopping adventure with him. I did not get a familial relationship at all. So it's like I said, there's just so much. There's so much in this film that's just so baffling to me. Now,
and they also just kind of hand wave over Palpatine's son. That's a pretty big fucking deal.
Especially after the last movie, they made a big deal about how her parents were nobody. Anyway, Kat, you're about to say something?
I was just going to say that the last time we demanded an explanation out of the Force and bullshit like that, we got midichlorians.
That's a fair point.
There's only so much that you can explain without just saying, I wanted a TV show. Because what you're saying is, I want a TV show. Because the only conceivable way to do all of the things that you've just described, it cannot be done in a single film. It is a TV show.
Or a comic book series.
Or comic book series.
Or
in
two
any
films.
case, it was never, all the things that you wanted to get out of this film were not conceivably possible to execute in a single film.
I don't know. You look at Avengers Endgame. Look how much that pulled off. But that also
Avengers
had 23
Endgame
films of build-up.
There was 2 movies.
And that brings us back again to Last Jedi. The Rise of Skywalker felt like 2 films that tried to cram itself into one. And I feel like that's the result of there not really being a unified vision for how the trilogy was supposed to go. And it brings us back to, again, this feels like an overcorrection for The Last Jedi. Now that I've thoroughly lashed this film to bits, there are some nice things that I do have to say about it, and the big one is how this movie handles Carrie Fisher and Leia. I feel like that they did the best they could with Leia, and what they did really well. And every moment that she was on screen, she has the perfect presence and gravitas. and her impact on the film I felt was done really well. And so props to the filmmakers for doing so well with Leia and sending her character off in a way that did her justice. I feel like she was one of the only characters that got done justice in this film.
Yeah, and to me, that was actually the most important thing that they could do in these films, was to make sure that they didn't, to make sure that they handled Carrie well. Because they basically spent 3 movies axing each one of the main original characters. And, you know, I'm willing to bet if Carrie Fisher hadn't died, Leia would have obviously, like, made it and survived and been the last of a generation to, like, see this through to the end. And that would have been really beautiful poetic symmetry, but like to delicately handle that situation, I thought was so tricky, because immediately after she died, the studio said, we will not CG her, we will not recast her. And like both of, like, certainly CGing her would have been such a tempting thing for a studio to do, to not have to change their scripts around, and they committed to it and they stuck with it, and I really love that they did it well.
And another thing that I really liked, and this goes in the film's presentation, is I like that, as Kat mentioned, we got to see some different world biomes this time around. We got to see some worlds that actually felt alien. We even went to a desert planet that I actually liked, which I've made vocal my dislike of desert planets as shorthand for alien, because I've always found that lazy. But so they go to a desert planet this time, but we also get to see some of the alien culture. They land in the middle of this festival of ancestors, I think they called it. And I was genuinely interested to see this and learn more about it. I was like, oh, this is cool. If there wasn't this world, you know, destroying plot going along, I'd like to actually stick around and learn more about these people. And the little girl who asked Rey about her family is just adorable. Not quite Baby Yoda levels of adorable, but she's up there.
One thing I did like about this is I did like a lot of the lightsaber fights, and there were a lot. I'd be very curious to know if the fight choreographer was the same one that they got from the prequels, which was Nick Galliard, I think was the fight guy's name. They're pretty cool. Like I said, I've always loved the look of Kylo Ren's saber. Daisy Ridley looks really cool when she's swinging around her lightsaber. John Boyega as Finn, I think he is a wonderful actor. I think he put in a great performance. Oscar Isaacs, I think, is the guy that plays Poe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Him, I really like. I like pretty much any scene that he's in. When he gets a chance to really just kind of talk, he kind of steals it, I feel. A lot of the space battles were cool, even if they were kind of goofy at times. And I like Adam Driver as Kylo Ren. I think his performance is really, really good, despite what he's given to work with. It's neat. Plus, I like the idea of the shell of the Death Star being on Endor, even though I'm sorry that thing was atomized, but okay. Yeah, there were some cool looking set pieces and locations. And it was nice to see Luke again.
I'd say even more than seeing Luke again, it was nice to see Han again. I expected to see Luke again because I expected some Force Ghost bullshit to happen, but it was nice to see Han Solo show up. You know, just not as a Force Ghost, but just like as Kylo, as Ben's conscience, basically. And they did this wonderful moment of him reenacting essentially the scene where he kills his father. And this time he makes the right choice. And I thought that was such a nice, lovely parallel for Kylo Ren's character, because I did not hate his character. I thought that he had wonderful character development. And it's taken 3 films, because this is not like, oh, he's a bad guy and suddenly he's a good guy. This was, he had like tremendous doubts and weaknesses throughout the first film, and even more so throughout the second film, where he was very close to being pulled to the light. And, you know, and this was him. The third film is finally casting aside Kylo Ren to just become Ben. And it was just, I thought it was so subtly but brilliantly done that he just looks different. just by like throwing his hair back a little bit and not wearing the big cowl and cape and everything, like he just looks completely different as Ben Solo versus Kylo Ren. The way he carries himself, he gets like a little comedic moment and you're like, yes, I see a physical transformation that is just so subtle, and I just thought that was really great. And then they ruined it by making them kiss. Because that shouldn't have happened. This is not just me saying my ship didn't sail. This was like a, look, they might have feelings for one another, but this isn't the time or the place, or like really like just, you could have completely not had that and had a much better ending. But like those heterosexuals gotta throw them kisses in there. Otherwise, how will we know that characters care about each other?
Did you, when you saw that scene in the theater, did you throw up the what the fuck hands? Because I did.
I literally went gross, but that's me.
I did. I just thought of something else that another problem I have with the story of this film. So if you remember back in The Last Jedi, the whole arc throughout that was you didn't need to be from a dynasty like a Skywalker. You didn't have to have a blood relative who was powerful in the Force to be powerful. The strength in the Force could come from anywhere. And then this movie comes along, Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter. Well, that whole thing got thrown out the window.
Well, yeah, because that never made sense to begin with in films that are about a dynasty. Like, these films were always about the Skywalker family, and to say that, oh, she's Rey from nowhere, she's nobody, that was inconsistent.
I wanted her so bad to be like Obi-Wan's kid somehow, some way.
I mean, we all wanted that, but that also would not have been good writing.
Yeah, that's true.
Obi-Wan's probably the only character who's more sexless than Palpatine. That's kind of disturbing in its own way.
But Ewan McGregor's a boss. So is Al Guinness. But still, yeah. Although I was happy to see, although I know it'll get cut for the Chinese release, the lesbian couple at the celebration at the end. I thought that was nice. I think she was one of the like A-wing pilots or something, and that's my favorite ship. So go A-wing.
Yeah, which we could discuss the. Yes, it's nice that there was a kiss, but
yeah,
why didn't Finn and Poe get together?
I know, right?
Like, that's I ship every ship in this, like, except for Reylo, which I'm okay with, like, Ben and Rey versus Kylo Ren and Rey. Like, that to me is like a slightly more cohesive ship, but I don't really ship it because I've been shipping Finn Rey from the beginning. Because he actually, like, super has a crush on her, and it's very obvious. And he spent, like, a film trying to say something to her that never got addressed. And that is my biggest problem with this film. It's like, two times, he's like, Rey, I have something to say, and then whoosh, nothing.
Although, supposedly, what he was going to tell Rey is, oh, by the way, I'm Force sensitive. Why would you hide that from Poe?
That would have been okay! Even that would have been okay, because it's been obvious from the beginning that he's Force sensitive. He just needs a teacher.
Exactly. Hand this motherfucker a lightsaber, give him a fucking training manual and a weekend. Come on.
It's another thing is that I have, of all the things that they've done dirty, is like not putting a lightsaber back in his hand at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because he handled it pretty well, considering he'd never had one before in the first film, and they were clearly going to lead him down that path of he is also going to be a Jedi. And then they just, like, spent a whole film doing nothing with him being Force sensitive or a Jedi. And then they were like, oh yeah, he's definitely Force sensitive. That's where we're going with this. And there's a lot of potential for that. But really, it was such Rey's story that they just couldn't deal with more stuff.
Yeah, Finn is a character that I feel like they basically. You want to talk about inconsistent character writing? Okay, so the first film, he defects from the First Order to do what's right, and he's ready to do what needs doing with Resistance. Second film, bro's a fucking coward throughout the whole thing. I mean, Finn throughout the whole Last Jedi was just looking for the earliest excuse to bail, and then this film, he's back to being the courageous Resistance fighter that he was in The Force Awakens. I'm like. again,
Did you
it all comes.
Watch
It
The
all.
Force Awakens though, because like literally the first thing he does is we can't fight the First Order. We have to run.
I remember him having that moment, but then I remember him kind of coming around
It's
at the
because he met a
halfway point.
girl.
Yes.
But like I said, again, it all comes back to so much of this movie. It's just an overcorrection for what happened in The Last Jedi, which I think now at this point we're just kind of going around in circles. So let's start wrapping things up by giving our final thoughts on this film. So, Kat, let's start with you. Your final general thoughts on The Rise of Skywalker and the new trilogy in general.
Okay. Overall, I loved the trilogy. It obviously has major problems, and most of them stem with the big turn of The Last Jedi, which again I still liked, but it is a problematic film. I think the movie has a lot of issues. I think a lot of the issues that people raise are really because they're looking at Star Wars through such rose-colored glasses that they don't see the original films were extremely flawed and share a lot of these same issues. And we just ignore the original trilogy's issues and focus on taking shits all over the new trilogy. But again, I actually really liked these films, and I really liked the new one quite a lot. I did manage to get to see it twice before recording this, and I really feel like, despite it being a wrap up of the Skywalker arcs, I guess, I think it does leave a greater universe open, because now there's more possibilities. Like there's more force sensitive people. There's more possibilities, I think, than what we were left with previous trilogy. That they could do so much more with new characters now that they've wrapped this up. Again, a problematic film, this one. I don't think it's as problematic as people are making it out to be. I think people are just a lot less forgiving with this film than they are with others, because it had an impossible standard to meet. Like it could never reach the high bar that people have put up for it. So, but I enjoyed it. I really would like so much more with these characters, and I'm really sad that it's over and I don't get more with these characters. I know there's books and comics and everything, and maybe they'll drag an animated series out of it, but I would love so much more.
Okay, Birdman, what about you? Final thoughts on this film?
Well, it's okay, I guess. There are some cool parts in it. I'd say it is worth seeing in theater, because it will be one of the last big event Star Wars movies for probably a while. The Star Wars franchise will go to bed for at least 2 to 3 years until they do either Knights of the Old Republic or something else. We won't see Star Wars Episode 10 until at least 2025 or beyond that. So see this in theaters, do your best to, because you're going to want that memory. Temper your expectations. To talk about the trilogy as a whole, again, it's okay, I guess. It's got some really cool and some genuinely cool characters. I like Rey. I like Finn. I like Kylo Ren. I think there's some really cool ideas in here. The problem is they're never brought to the levels that I've come to expect from the Star Wars franchise. And maybe those expectations are impossibly high from 30 plus years of EU, which has been discarded. But that being said, Star Wars as a franchise is still remarkably powerful. The Mandalorian is the best thing Star Wars has done in years. There's Rebels, there's Clone Wars, there's a lot of really cool stuff out there. And like Kat said, I want to see more with these characters, be it in books, comic books, or whatever. I want to see Rey potentially start her own Jedi temple like Luke did in the new Jedi Order trilogy by Kevin J. Anderson in the mid-90s. So maybe we'll see that. Who knows? So overall, see them, moderate your expectations, and try and have fun with it.
The Force Awakens got the new trilogy off to a really good start, and then it Last Jedi kind of felt like they set a bomb off under the deck, and this film was the cleanup. As far as this film itself, I did not like it. There's so little in here that hasn't been done before. This movie really needed a stronger core of its own, and I feel like it's been denied that. But it just, like I said, I did not enjoy this film. But as far, I didn't dislike it enough to forswear Star Wars. I'm still a huge Star Wars fan, and I'm looking forward to seeing more from this universe. And I'd like to see more with Rey, Finn, and Poe. I'd like to see where they go with this, and hopefully, they'll get treated better in the expanded universe than they were done in these films. But now there comes the part of the show where we give our final ratings on this film. As always, our scale from best to worst is see it now, wait for matinee, wait for cable, don't even bother, and Brian's rating, fuck this movie. So, Kat, let's start with you. What's your final rating on The Rise of Skywalker?
I'm definitely a see it now. I saw it opening night at like 6 p.m. because I'm a grown-up and I have to wake up early. And I really enjoyed it. I definitely think that if you have enjoyed the previous films, that you will enjoy this one, and you should go see it now. I will add a caveat that I have seen a lot of people posting that they aren't sure if they want to see it based on the reviews that they've read. And I would say, go and fucking see it and make your own goddamn opinion. Like, don't avoid seeing it just because there's mixed reviews. Like, avoid the movie Cats because it has bad reviews.
See Cats!
Don't avoid a Star Wars movie because it's got mixed reviews. Like, don't do that. Just, make your own opinions about that. But don't, like, just go see it or don't, but don't sit there and waffle about it.
All right, Birdman, what about you?
I'm going to say wait and see it for a matinee, simply because it is an event thing. It's a cultural event. People are gonna say, did you see the last Skywalker movie? Kind of like how we saw the first one back in 1977. So yeah, go see it, make up your own mind about it, and try and have a good time. Just try not to think about it too much.
For me, I'm gonna say wait for cable. I'm not gonna say don't even bother, because at the very least it's worth seeing how this ride ends. But I'm going to say, wait for cable, wait for it to come out on Disney Plus, because it's going to be there. But it's not something that you absolutely need to go out and see immediately. So that's my final rating. Wait for cable. And so with that is our final show of 2019. We hope you guys had a happy holiday and that you have a happy new year. We will see you guys in 2020. Because I've gotten emails about it, we are going to be discussing The Mandalorian when we come back. So, so that is coming. But for now, we're going to be taking our customary holiday break. So we will see you guys in late January of 2020 for next year of Nerd to the Third Power. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you guys have a happy new year. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
I'm the Cat.
I'm still Mike Dodd.
All right, we'll see you in 2020. Taka, play us out.